There's a story about Jim Carrey that sounds too good to be true, but it's all fact. One day, long before Jim Carrey became one of Hollywood's top comedic actors, he sat in his car, high up in the Hollywood Hills, and made a bold decision. He pulled out his checkbook, wrote himself a check for $10 million, and dated it for 10 years in the future. He put it in his wallet and carried it around as a daily reminder of where he wanted to be. Now you might be thinking, what kind of person writes themselves a check they can't possibly cash? But that's exactly the kind of mindset Jim Carrey had, one where the impossible seemed like just a temporary obstacle. He didn't come from wealth or privilege. In fact, he grew up in a lower middle-class family in Canada, and they struggled big time. When Jim was 12, his father, Percy, lost his job as an accountant, and the family went through hard times. They were forced to live in a van for a while, and all the kids had to pitch in. Jim worked 8-hour shifts as a janitor after school just to help make ends meet. But through all of this, Jim still believed in his dream of making it big in Hollywood. The dreamer and the believer. So back to that check. Jim wasn't just dreaming, he was manifesting. That piece of paper represented his belief that he would eventually be able to cash a real check for that amount through acting services rendered, as he scribbled on the memo line. Every time you look at that check, it wasn't just a fantasy. It was a challenge to himself to make it happen. Now this is where the persistence part kicks in. Let's be real. Carrey's journey to success didn't exactly start out on a high note. At 15, he began performing stand-up comedy in small clubs around Toronto, trying out material that, well, let's just say, didn't always hit. In fact, he bombed a lot. Imagine being a teenager chasing a dream that most people think is insane and failing in front of live audiences again and again. Most people would have quit, but Jim, he kept going. What Carrey learned from those early failures was that success doesn't happen overnight. It's built on rejection after rejection, and resilience is the key. He continued to grind through the Toronto comedy scene, slowly building up his confidence and skill. By the time he was 19, Carrey had moved to Los Angeles to pursue his dream full-time, but even there, success wasn't immediate. He auditioned for parts, performed at comedy clubs, and lived a typical struggling actor lifestyle for years, breaking through the In Living Color era. Then, in 1990, Jim Carrey's career got its first big break. He landed a regular role on the TV show In Living Color. Now, if you've never seen this show, it was a sketch comedy series that was a huge deal in the 90s. It featured comedians like Keenan Ivory Wayans and Jamie Foxx. For Jim, this was the platform he needed to show his unique talent for physical comedy, rubber-faced expressions, and over-the-top characters. And people took notice. One of Jim's signature characters on the show was Fire Marshal Bill, a crazy, accident-prone fire marshal who always seemed to barely survive his own mishaps. The character became iconic, and suddenly, people everywhere knew who Jim Carrey was. But TV wasn't the endgame for Carrey. He wanted more. He wanted movies. The movie that changed everything, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. And then in 1994, everything changed. Jim Carrey starred in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, a film that would launch him into global superstardom. But the crazy thing is, the movie almost didn't happen. The studio didn't have much faith in the project, and Carrey himself had to fight to maintain creative control over his character. He took huge creative risks, fully committing to the bizarre, eccentric character of Ace Ventura. From his exaggerated movements to his nonsensical one-liners, already then, Jim Carrey's performance was unlike anything audiences had seen before. Critics, they were kind at first, but audiences, they couldn't get enough. The movie became a massive box office hit, grossing over $100 million. Carrey's commitment to the role, his going all in when others doubted him, paid off big time. It wasn't just a one-off success either. That same year, he starred in The Masked and Dumb and Dumber, both of which became box office smashes. By the end of 1994, Jim Carrey had become one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors, earning a staggering $20 million per film, a sum that made that $10 million check he wrote to himself seem, well, not so crazy anymore. The best part? He actually did cash that check, almost exactly 10 years after writing it. The power of going all in. What's the takeaway here? Jim Carrey's rise to fame wasn't about luck or being in the right place at the right time. It was about the power of persistence, belief in oneself, and going above and beyond what was expected. Jim didn't just show up to auditions or play by Hollywood's rules. He created his own path, with his own brand of comedy, and fully committed to everything he did. His mindset can be summed up in one of his most famous quotes: "You can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love." Carrey's story is a testament to the idea that success comes when you don't settle for the average path. He didn't just submit a resume or wait for opportunities to come to him. He created his own, went all in, and used his failures to fuel his drive forward. A lesson for all of us. So what does Jim Carrey's story teach us? It's about much more than just writing a check and cashing it later. It's about the power of belief, of dreaming big, and then actually doing the work to make those dreams come true. But it's also about going above and beyond what's expected of you, taking creative risks and not being afraid to fail. Just like the check he wrote to himself, Jim's success wasn't an accident. It was something he manifested, pursued relentlessly, and eventually achieved through hard work and a little bit of craziness. And really, isn't that what we all need to do to stand out in the world? If you're going to dream, dream big, and then put everything you got into making that dream your reality. Jim Carrey did, and look where it got him. Thank you for sticking with us. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment on one thing that inspired you and your favorite movie by Jim Carrey. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Letters of Inspiration, spreading inspiration one letter at a time. Until next time, stay inspired.